Welcome to episode 124 of In Touch with iOS, a podcast that talks about iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, and Apple TV and related technologies. I'm your host, Dave Ginsburg, and my co-host, Warren Sklar, is here. How you doing, Warren?
I am good. I'm hanging in there. Gonna get a good night's sleep, and we'll talk about why later. And
yes, you and me both. Yep. And we came from a Sunday recording last week because I was a little under the weather, but glad we're back here. We're gonna go, and this week we have a great guest, Michael DJ Eisenberg, the tech savvy lawyer. Did I say that right? Yep. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you.
And I thought you were a great speaker at my Apple user group in Chicago, suburban Chicago Apple users. Everybody had really loved it, and we're definitely gonna talk with you about what kind of makes things tick, and maybe sometimes not tick with iOS and iPhones. With as well as I want to find out a little more about you as well. And let's go ahead and actually we're going to find out about you now. As usually what we do when I have a new guest for the first time. We just want to find out what types of devices that you like to have that relate to iPhone or iPad or iOS. So I'm assuming you have an iPhone.
Heavens, what don't I have? I'm running the iPhone 11 Pro Max right now.
You're in our club.
Yeah. Well, hold on. Not as of tomorrow, not anymore, because
neither us.
I pre-prepared my iPhone 12 Pro Max. I've done all the things you can do before you actually order it. That is all set to go. So hopefully I'll be up at 9:00 Eastern my time. No, I'm sorry. It's 8:00 Eastern my time. It's
I was going to say, you better Pacific. Make sure set your clock set right.
Yeah, and I'm running a 2017 an iPad Max. Did I say that right? An iPad Pro Max. Not Max. No, it's an iPad Pro. Forgive me. The Max and the 10s and the Pros, it gets a little confusing sometimes.
So you have the iPad Pro. Do you have the 12.9 or the 11?
Yes,
11
the 12.9. And actually, that's what I meant to say. Excuse me. And I have the old, as I'm kind of reaching over here. Here it is. I'm reaching over here. The old now Folio keyboard by. You can't see it. Sorry.
It's okay. We're audio mostly.
the iPhone Folio keyboard without the sort of levitation aspect to it, although I am very interested in it. I don't think $350 for an iPad keyboard is worth it, at least not yet.
I wouldn't do it. If I had to do it over, I wouldn't do it. We both have one.
We both have it, yeah.
But, did either of you get the Logitech version?
No, we got
the Apple price.
We got the Apple one. Yeah.
I didn't know if any of you had seen it or played with it.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't, but I would do that if I was doing it again. I'd probably go that route because it's half the price. And sometimes the floaty Magic Keyboard is really cool, and the way it works, and it types very well. But it does add a lot of weight to the thing, and it doesn't protect the iPad if you want to take it out and not use the keyboard. So it's got issues. If you're trying to use it just as a laptop kind of keyboard, it's pretty good. But if you want to use it as a tablet, it's not that good.
Well, as I think we'll get in later based on your show notes, I will express why I don't think that keyboard, whether it's by Logitech or by Apple, is worth it, at least at this point. But that's for a little bit later in the show. So I think the one story I will share with you guys about iPhones and iPads and iOSs is way back when the Kindle came out. My wife is a voracious reader, and she's constantly reading books, and she's always bringing books with her when we go on trips and vacations and whatnot. And I try to convince her that, well, try out this Kindle. This is 10, 15 years ago. Try out this Kindle. I think you'd really like it. She's like, no. I like my books. I like my hard copies. I like to feel the book in my hand. And then after a little while, I went ahead and got her the Kindle. And she's like, oh my God, this is fantastic. This is great. Yeah. But I know you guys are thinking, well, what does this have to do with iOS?
No, we're technology here. That's why we got in our room here.
We're getting there. I promise you, we're getting there. But the story's not done yet, because what happened is when the iPad came out, And I'm like, well, honey, how about this? What do you think of this? Not only can you read your books, you can read your books not just from Kindle, but also from Apple and from this and from that. And you can look at your email and browse and this and that, whatever. She's like, I don't want it. Just don't waste the money, blah, blah, blah. Later, I get it for her. She loves it. There goes the Kindle. And well, honey, can I get you an upgrade after so many years? Oh, no, I don't need it. Get the upgrade. Oh my God, it works so much faster. This is fantastic. Oh, it can do these neat things too. So she's on the iPad, the iPad Mini 4. And I will be getting her the 5 pending if there's going to be a release of a 6, which I'm beginning to wonder is or is not in the cards in the near future.
There's a rumor that it's going to be a full screen version, which would be really cool. Yeah. Like a Face ID version.
But when?
Who knows? But your story is a lot like mine. Just real fast, is I bought my wife an iPad. I bought my wife an iPad for Valentine's Day. Early on, and she's like, "Why would I need this? Because I have a phone." So we returned it. 5 or 6 years later, she has like 3 of them. They're like all over the house. This is one of hers. I think she has one over there too.
So you're buying her new ones every year?
No, she's pretty good at not wanting to upgrade to the latest ones, but she has a whole bunch.
Unlike you.
Unlike me, yeah. Actually, I just sold. I wish I would have heard this earlier. I just sold off my. I had an iPad Mini 5. I just sold it off for a pretty good price to somebody else. I would have given it to you.
Well, why did you just sell it? I mean, because
so I have so I had needed to consolidate. I have the iPad Pro,
right?
The 11-inch 2018. I also had a Surface Go 2. So my feeling is I'm getting the new phone tomorrow.
Right.
Put some money towards that, and I'm getting one of these new Macs that are coming out next week. So I'm consolidating.
Well, you sort of hit on something that, at least from a business perspective, that I look at, and also being a bit of a tech geek. So, you're buying for the upgrade, you got to sell the old one. And at least with my iPhone, and also my iMac that I'm running my audio and visual from today, they're both on leases. Which, it's sort of like you to put it all up front at one time, or do you put it out a little bit by little bit? And then, of course, when you want to do a trade-in or an upgrade, at least for the iPhone, you can do that easily. For the iMacs, it's pretty much the end of the lease. You can't pre-order or update the lease earlier like you can with the phone.
Yeah, they registered something in another country called Apple for Life. Mm-hmm. So the theory is that they're going to start doing the same thing with the upgrade program for iMacs and MacBooks too. You and me and Dave could have a whole conversation because we've crunched the numbers too. We've crunched the numbers between whether it's better. Some people like me tend to buy at least for the phone, we'll buy the phone out and sell at the end.
Right.
And generally, for me, I've been doing pretty good with that, and it's cheap. I do a little bit better than if I did the iPhone upgrade program.
Right,
as far as costs go.
And then, with all due respect, you're saying, and I'm not arguing with you, you're doing a little bit better, but it's a little bit better. And what I just try to do is I just try to get rid of the pain point. Having to worry about selling it and packaging it, making sure it gets there, and all this. Where Apple, they just basically take it as long as it's not broken.
Sure. And they'll take it too, also on a trade-in too, but you don't get that much money with them as well.
Right.
True. It is a little bit of a pain, but it's not that bad because, I don't, I could get more. Yeah. This time around was a little tougher because of timing, but it all worked out.
No. I'm not poo-pooing you or anything. It's just the different perspectives for different people.
Yeah, no.
Well, I'll go in and say here, I've been in the Apple upgrade program since its inception. It's been like 3 or 4 years, so I do it every year, and I think it's a good value for me, because I want to get the latest and greatest iPhone every year of all the devices that I have, and you're actually going to start learning with Warren. He buys, like, as soon as the Apple Silicon Macs are going to be out on Tuesday when they're going to announce, you guarantee he's going to have those ordered and has all his Macs sold already. So, but
I'm debating,
I think, yeah, you're doing it. So I've been always an adopter with iPhones, always trading in, getting the next one each year, because it's my passion. I like iPhones, and I think it's important, and I find it as a value. So, and we're going to talk about that just a bit here as far as the upgrade for tomorrow here. So, but no, and do you dabble at tvOS at all? Do you have an Apple TV, or
we do have? Well, we have two Apple TVs, the new one and I think the last version, and we have the new one, in our living room that we use, generally for entertainment and whatnot. I had gotten the new one in part because I was going to use the old one for travel when I used to travel for hearings. But I don't travel for hearings anymore. They're all virtual. They're all done by video, and it's not something I need necessarily right now. But it's good to have a backup, and I'll probably put it in. To the TV that I have here in my office. I haven't put it up yet because this TV actually has a fairly new TV, and it has AirPlay too.
Okay. Right.
So it's got Netflix built in. It's got Amazon. It's got everything built in. So it's, in a sense, I don't necessarily need the Apple TV except to play Apple TV stuff. And
the good thing is you can get Apple TV's app on a lot of these newer TVs as it is anyway, so you won't miss anything as far as that goes. So, but that's why we have you on the show, because I knew you love Apple like we do, and I love the products. So that's what we do here each week on the show, and really enjoy it. So, with that, let's go ahead and we'll be talking to Michael here just a little bit about what he does and get his thoughts on the law end of things using iOS devices here just a bit here. But let's go into the news stories we talked for this week. First thing is the Apple announcement. There's another one. This is the third one now this year, which is awesome. Apple's now a new event is on November 10th, which is happens to be my birthday, which is, I said that they were thinking that when they announced it. It's one more thing. And it's looking like it's going to be, now they already did iPhones, they already did iPads, they already did the Apple Watch, and now we're at the point where the Apple Silicon needs to be announced. And it's definitely going to be interesting to see where they go with that. We don't talk too much about Mac here, but we're still Apple here. So I think this is in 9 to 5 Mac, is where I linked to in our show notes. That they're probably going to be, I would venture to say, at least a 13-inch MacBook Pro, potentially maybe a 16-inch, as far as that announcement goes. Warren, do you think those are about right, what they're saying, with probably two MacBooks, or do you think... They were
saying one 13-inch Air, one 13-inch Pro, and the 16-inch Pro later down. So they might be introducing the two 13-inch models on Tuesday. And initially I thought it was going to be one of these, and you could start ordering these starting, December 14th, which they could easily still do, which would be a bummer. But since today I changed my mind because Big Sur, because they released the release candidate for Big Sur today.
Was another thing I was going to say. So
since I released that today, that gives me hope that maybe they're getting it ready for the actual release of it. I
have a feeling.
Yeah, so
I think Big Sur is going to get announced. Oh, by the way, Big Sur is released today.
Yeah, so it's probably going to give you a week, and then with any luck, you'll be able to start ordering the machines either that week or next week to come the week after that. So, yeah. So, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, my plan is my initial plan is to keep my 16-inch Pro and sell my Air and buy another Air with the silicon. I think is my plan. So.
Right. Well, we'll see. We'll see. But then they got to have something other than the Mac. So, they've been talking about the Apple AirTags for a long time, seeing if that's going to come out, as well as the potential of the new AirPod Studio headphones was the other piece, and possibly another Apple TV remote, which I don't know. That seems a little more far fetched, but you have those three items too, because people all complaining about the remote on the Apple TV all the time. I bought the Function 101 remote, which is nice, but doesn't have the Siri sounds, and you can't do the touchpad on it. So it's a little more limited. So did you have any thoughts on the event before we go to the next story, Michael?
Well, so not necessarily on the event per se, but I will say this with Lauren, when you're a tech person and you get to play and buy all the different technology aspects that are out there, that's fantastic. But from a business perspective, I would be hesitant to tell any attorney, let alone any professional, to buy the new Silicon Macs, because there's going to be a transition of what software will work and what software won't work for a while. Pardon me. And that's gonna take some time. So I'd be hesitant to be using a new machine that's basically untested. As a matter of fact, I ended up helping someone spec out a new MacBook Air just the other week, but I warned them that there's a new computer coming out. Yeah, the prices might drop, but Apple rarely does. But if you get the new computer, you still have to worry about what doesn't work yet, and you don't need to have that big surprise when you're in the middle of a meeting, middle of getting something done, a deadline. Yeah. So for the tech side, I mean, I would love to get a new MacBook, but with Silicon MacBook. But on the other hand, because I'm also running another business, my law firm, I would be hesitant to touch it, which is the nice thing about the lease, because my lease expires next November. And by then I'll feel more comfortable, I'm sure, using the silicon-based Mac versus the Intel chip that we have now.
Yeah. I mean, I have a different view. I mean, I think Apple
lives on the edge.
Is it really the edge? I mean, Apple's, they're big enough and smart enough now not to release something that's just not going to work for people. Yeah, whatever they're going to release out to the world, and they're going to sell it as a viable alternative to what's out there. If people can't run half their software, then that's not going to be a good look for them. And I think they'll avoid that from happening. I know people have bad experiences in the past with some of the other transitions, way down, but that was a long time ago, and technology changes, and right now, the emulation layers will work, and the problem is they were slow back then, but these are much faster machines. So I have faith that Apple's not going to release a product that won't work with everything that works currently on your current Mac.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I have three thoughts on that, if I may. So first, even some of the individual software companies saying, hey, don't upgrade yet. We're not sure if we're there. And two, it's always, everything works great except that one critical piece of software that if it's not working and that's a main part of your business or a subtle part of your business that affects everything else, that could be a problem. And then, lastly, that's why God invented updates. If everything was working so perfectly to begin with, I mean, Apple's come out with several patches, updates to the system. I think we got one, 5 hours ago? And,
we're going to talk about it.
And I was having a little tech issue joining you guys today, and I'm not sure if it was that or something else I had running that I just needed to turn off.
Right. So, well, that's the issues that the third party companies are having. Nobody's saying don't upgrade to the Apple Silicon because of compatibility. They're talking about Catalina at this point because I haven't tested it with Catalina. So, I mean, that is it's a whole different animal right now. I don't, developers, most of them don't even know, if, they don't even know what the new Apple hardware is going to be like. So they can't really say, but, until they really test it on that platform, they can't really say it. But according to Apple, a Mac running Big Sur on Apple Silicon is going to be identical to one running on Intel. So
I hope that's the case. I just don't want to find out the hard way. And trust me, in my business, if you piss off a judge because something happened because of your computer went wonky, they don't care.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and move on because we're talking a little too much about Mac here.
Sorry.
But no worries. And the next story was about the Apple Watch. Apple Watch is now going to be supported by Spotify. It can actually be a standalone app, which I thought was pretty cool. This was in Mac Rumors. Spotify actually is going to allow the Apple. Actually, they were able to develop this app, so it's going to start rolling out support for standalone streaming through the Spotify app, just using your Apple Watch. So with the new feature, you can listen to music, podcasts, from Spotify over Wi-Fi or cellular without having your iPhone nearby, which is cool. It's good to see that the Apple Watch is finally starting to have some of that support, and you don't necessarily have to have a cellular version of the Apple Watch in order to take advantage of this and be able to take a look at that. Warren, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not a Spotify user, so it doesn't matter too much to me. But
yeah, not me either. But
it's good to see. Yeah, it's good if I think Apple Music already does that, right? If you don't need a Apple Music, obviously already does it. So
I think it's more so the competition. I like to see the fact that Apple is going to be open to that and not be the big bully, because we own the product and we do the devices. That we're not going to allow others to be able to compete, and I think that's a fair thing. Did you have any thoughts, Michael?
Well, I think it is great that more third-party apps are being able to utilize Mac devices across the board, and especially the Apple Watch. Unfortunately, given pandemic right now, the COVID pandemic we're in right now, when I first got the watch was so that I wouldn't be so anchored to the phone. And as I'm making that transition away from the phone, we have COVID, and quite frankly, you're stuck. Everyone's stuck in their houses. The watch, the iPhone, all our devices are right there. So it's not, I'm not going to waste time making sure everything's synced together. So I think it's a great thing, business wise for everyone, because I think David said, it creates more competition, and ultimately we're going to get a better product in the end. But beyond that, like you guys, I don't use Spotify, and quite frankly, I rarely listen to music.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm listening to podcasts.
Yeah, well, as well we should be. Podcasts are a big thing.
I mostly do too at this point, to be honest with you. So
yeah. So and then just to kind of transition to the next story, this is also Mac Rumors. Pandora, which is another music service owned by SiriusXM, of course, now is now going to be allowed to be run on the HomePod, and the HomePod is going to allow it to have that added support, because HomePod was limited with music to just Apple Music in this case. So again, it goes along with this same theme. You're seeing that Apple's opening things up with having services on all these devices.
Yeah, Pandora is not that popular here, but in England, it's very popular. When I lived out there, that was everything. That was pretty much the big thing.
And Pandora's got a lot of nice integration with SiriusXM. So if you're a SiriusXM subscriber, you kind of it seems like it's influenced how they curate music more so than ever with the different channels. So, and then the Mandalorian, which I don't know if you watch this show, Michael, is now and it's a phenomenal show. I just watched the first episode last week. Is now going to be supported by the AirPods with the Spatial audio, AirPods Pro. This was in the Mac Observer, and if you tune in and watch the second season, you'll be pleasantly surprised, as Andrew Ord said in this article, that you're going to be freaking out and looking around and saying, "Wow, this is." Where am I? I'm in like a different place here, and it's definitely cool to see that you're going to start seeing more and more content support that. Did you, Michael? Do you have the AirPods Pro?
I don't have the AirPods Pro. I have the AirPods, the second version, and actually, it's what I'm using right now. They are fantastic, and so, but each of my Bluetooth phone or my Bluetooth headphones, if you will, have different purposes. So I have the AirPods for business and for podcasting. I have the Bose Sports model, the older Bose that goes in your ear, which is great for exercising and gives me a great stereo. And mind you, I've had that for so many years that I'm not going to just go buy a pair of AirPod Pros when I already have something that works. And then for when I travel, I have a pair of Bose on the ear headphones that again gives great stereo. I appreciate that the AirPod Pros are probably fantastic, and they're probably a little bit easier to use when you're on the go than say the more bulkier things that I use. But since my wife and I both watch The Mandalorian, I'm not sure us having AirPod Pros would work for that show, or for when we're watching it together, at least.
Did you try that? I didn't try it yet, Warren. You watched this? I assume you watched The Mandalorian.
I haven't watched it yet. I'm trying to get a time where my wife and I could do it at the same time. I received The Mandalorian through unconventional means, so it may not work for me.
Gotcha.
But we'll see.
Say no more.
I played with spatial audio on a couple of the Apple products shows, at least. It's cool if you really want to get a good feel for it. Their nature show, the elephant thing, is good on the Apple TV. So it's neat. It's trippy.
It is. Yeah, we tried it a couple times here. So, and then speaking of AirPods, in the this article was in 9 to 5 Mac. The AirPods Pro were having some problems. Not everybody's having problems. They were making crackling noises and kind of breaking up. And Apple has started a replacement program. And the article does describe what you have to do. You pretty much have to call Apple support, or you can go to an authorized service provider, and they will examine them and check to make sure that they're good and test them and see if it is indeed giving you issues. I haven't had that problem. I'm assuming you haven't either, Warren, at all on this either, right?
Not that I know of, no.
But you realize, whether intentional or not, this actually circles back completely to the silicon-based Macs when they come out. Great. Most of the AirPod Pros have been working fantastic for everyone except for some. And, I don't want to be one of those some. Like the keyboard issue with the old MacBooks, when they had that version. I mean, I never had a keyboard issue with it, thankfully. But then you feel sorry for the people that do.
The AirPod thing is a manufacturing defect that could happen with that could happen if you buy a product that you trust. Yeah, I mean that you know of. The butterfly keyboard wasn't as bad as people said it was. I've owned a whole bunch.
I never had it. I loved the old new keyboard, if you will, and
yeah, I didn't either. I had the 2017, but I traded it in and not traded in. I sold it and then went with the 2019 model, which was the more up to date the butterfly keyboard, and I'm fine with it. It's working fine for me. But the 2020 models, or the 16-inch 2019 model, was the one I just missed by 2 months that Warren has. So
sorry.
Because I bought it in June, and then of course the next month they came out with the 16. And
it might be for sale. Keep an eye out.
Yeah. Okay. That someone's got to buy mine. I don't want to go through that grief. That's the news that we were going to cover this week, and then our segment we have each week is beta. And Warren, now you're going to go through beta withdrawal for a little bit until they come out with a new version. Because as we record this on Thursday, the 5th of November, earlier this morning, Apple decided to drop 14.2 as a full release to everybody. That included along lines of the HomePod, WatchOS, iPadOS, and tvOS. And we talked about last week a lot of the changes that they added in 14.2, including the emojis, the control center with music recognition, and the intercom, which I got to play with finally today, because I, unlike Warren, who likes to live on the edge, so for your knowledge, Michael, he always has the beta version on every one of his devices, no matter what it takes.
I saw a Big Sur beta. I got one left, so
on his primary Mac. Don't understand it.
On
but
both of them, yeah, I'm using it right now. It's fine.
He likes living on the edge, so. Don't worry, Michael. Yeah, this is not something he'd be doing in the business world. I know that, and I work in the business world as well. So now I would never be doing that either. So, so we've got that came out. The intercom is a really cool thing, and as I get used to, I think we're going to talk about it in future shows here to kind of give demos of it. It's kind of interesting where you record your voice, and the intercom will send the message to one of the other devices that are connected with it. and then you can play it back. And then the same thing if someone sends you the message, and if you're sitting next to your HomePods, I have Michael, I have two HomePods sitting next to me here in pair that will send that message to me through the intercom system. So they've done some updates. So the software is being updated for the HomePod, which is great for the HomePod, the regular HomePod, because of course the HomePod Mini is coming out, which we'll talk about in a second here. And the other interesting thing, I have this article here linked from ZDNet. This is iOS. They did fix some 0-day exploits. I don't know if you saw this, Warren. That there were a couple of security updates here included as well.
Or Catalina too, right? Is that the one you're talking?
It was Catalina and iOS.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. So that probably prompted Apple to force it release this version even quicker, even though that the pre-orders are tomorrow for the iPhone 12 Pro Max. So it's definitely. It was an interesting day of releases this morning with all these releases. tvOS was just, there wasn't much of a fanfare. They generally don't. Apple generally doesn't say what they add to tvOS. Probably, I would assume as always, bug fixes. 14.2 software came out for the HomePod, so that came out. And interesting, Warren, you said that you were able to get the intercom to work in beta. Because I didn't think they released the beta version of a HomePod software.
I did. Yeah, it worked. I think they did have the beta. They did have the beta on the HomePod as well. And I had the beta on my phones too. So I was able to intercom using my phone to the HomePod, just not vice versa. Because you weren't able to intercom to yourself. So now that the release dropped today, I'm trying to get my family to upgrade it so we can intercom with each other. They're just too lazy. They're just too lazy to do it. So
I was trying to get my wife to do it, and she still. I don't know if she hadn't have it set up yet, so I got to get it set up, and then
I might have to steal her phone tonight and do the
get the update, because they're not going to do it until it's forced.
Exactly.
And then for those of you still using the old iPhone that would be probably prior to the 6, I think was that are running 12.4.9 was also released for security updates. There's still people out there using those older devices, so at least Apple's keeping them secure. So, any more thoughts on that before we go on to that?
I think it's going to be great for the intercom because sadly, my wife and I are on separate floors of the house. We don't have a huge house. And even just prior to broadcasting today, I was trying to tell her to, turn the TV down downstairs and make sure the puppies weren't, barking. And we had a couple back and forths just because we didn't hear each other. However, I think something like with the intercom, even in a small house, would be great.
Yep. So, all right. So let's go on to the next topic. As everybody knows, I and as well as Warren, and I think you are too, Michael, if I'm not mistaken, that you're gonna upgrade to the 12 Pro Max and do the pre-order tomorrow.
Yes.
As we talked earlier, we upgrade every year, and you got to get up early tomorrow morning. Not too bad this time. In the past you've had to get up at 2 a.m. usually, or 3 a.m. Eastern time.
Right.
And now we only have to get up at 7 a.m. Central Time for me, and 8 Eastern Time for you guys. So it's going to be a lot,
which is
easier.
Still not the easiest, but for me. But I'll deal.
I think you could get up at 8 o'clock.
I'm going to try. Yeah. I mean. Yeah.
So. We're convinced. I think this is going to be a great upgrade. Now, I purposely put this article in the show notes. This is actually from iPhone Hacks. Is they always seem to be kind of on the negative side sometimes with this stuff, but I think it's a good debate. The iPhone 12 Pro Max versus the iPhone XS Max. Should you upgrade? And they go through and talk about a lot of this stuff. And if you're a XS Max, which I had the year before. At this point, I would probably say yes. I would go and upgrade it. And they're of course saying that they don't think it's worth going from the 11 Pro Max to the 12 Pro Max, which I beg to differ. But good reference point to see what because some folks aren't ready to upgrade. They don't have the budget. They don't want to make that dive like we do. But to give people an educated understanding of what to expect, if you are looking to be in the market for upgrading. But you're talking about early adopters here, so we all like upgrading. So I don't know if you're going to convince us by looking at that. So any more thoughts about that? Warren, what do you think? Why would you not want to upgrade?
I mean, to the layperson, I think 11 Pro Max, if you had that, and somebody said, should I upgrade to the, I would go 50-50. I mean, the 5G, I think might be what I'd be upgrading for personally. You say, it's not a big deal, but I do, there's times actually like where, especially now where you're doing, you're out and you're doing video conferencing, you're doing Zoom calls. I mean, things that are pretty bandwidth intensive. You forget about those kind of things. So to have the 5G, I think it's worth it alone. Other than that, the camera improvements, the size is a little bigger, which I always want the biggest phone I could get. Right. So, I mean, there's reasons definitely to do it. There's also a lot of reasons not to do it. I mean, obviously for us, we're going to do it because that's what we do. Right. But, for some regular users, I wouldn't yell at them for not upgrading.
No, nor would I.
11 Pro Max to a 12 Pro Max. If they had like a 10 at that point, I would say definitely go for it. But yeah, I mean, as I said, my son had a 10R and he just got the 12, just a regular 12 for him, which is great. And he loves the difference. So there's, he had a 10R before him, which was obviously a little bit different because it had the LCD screen. But he's loving it. He's loving the speed. He's loving the screen.
And Michael, do you have any thoughts about upgrading? And would you not?
Well, I am because I'm on the lease program. I would not if I wasn't. Especially right now, because I think, like Warren says, the 5G is going to be phenomenal, and that's going to be one of the best parts about the new iPhones.
Right.
The thing is, no one's traveling right now, and it's sort of like like right now for my business, I lease my car. So it was funny. My lease on my car happens to end next November. And we're talking, it's like, well, if it had ended today or this month, we're like, we wouldn't renew it because it's like I barely go anywhere and we have her car and we could just use her car to get, to do what we need to do because we're rarely either not traveling together or just one of us out of the house. However, on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, I mean, I'm getting it. I'm sure I'm going to love it. I'm going to enjoy it. But again, if I had to sell it, I probably wouldn't be doing that right now.
Yep. Okay. All right. So everybody be ready to pre-order the 12 Pro Max. I know if you didn't buy the 12 Pro a couple weeks ago, I know the stock is few and far between right now. A lot of it might be pushing out to January now before you get one of those. So
what color? We didn't talk about colors.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm Pacific Blue.
Blue.
I'm gonna do the silver. I'm not big on the blue. And I've been doing like grays a lot. I haven't had a silver in a while, so. And I figured.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just figure since I don't really want the blue, and my chances of getting the phone on delivery day would be better if I went for something other than blue, anyway. So, go ahead.
Well, you make a good point, Warren. I think David and I may have to be waiting a little while extra for our blue iPhones. But I
get
guess,
in early.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to ask you two. So from what I've been reading, the Apple's been cannibalizing some of their iPad parts for the iPhones because
the lidar sensors.
Yeah. So we may have to wait a little bit longer, even if we don't get the blue.
So with the regular 12 Pros, there's a little bit of delay, the hope is they have a pretty good stockpile of the Pro Maxes at first. So, as Dave said, if we're there at 8:00, and I think we'll be all right.
Get the order in quick,
early and quick. Have different have a laptop and an iPhone ready, because sometimes the website worked and sometimes the app works.
Yeah, I'll be sitting right where I'm sitting right now with the phone in one hand and
command
sitting
center
on the screen. And it'll be a command center for ordering gear. So
exactly.
So let's go ahead and move on. I also mentioned the HomePod Mini goes on pre-order tomorrow as well. So if you want to get one of those, you want to jump and get that ordered as well. So
are either of you getting that?
I am. We're going to get one. Yeah, at least one. I'm going to get one as it's birthday present, so the wife will end up buying me something. So there's a good idea. It's not that terribly expensive, and why not? Then I'd like to have it to play with and probably put it downstairs instead of in here in my office here. So, all right. So we got a couple topics I wanted to touch with you, Michael, being our guest this week, and the first one was as an attorney, I wanted to find out what things are good about iOS and relates to working at law firms and attorneys in general, and then what are bad things. And as you brought that up in pre-show, you were worried if you were going to talk about bad things. Have at it, because there's plenty of bad things with iOS and there's plenty of great new things, good things with iOS. So where do you see? Obviously your firm, you guys, I'm sure many of your employees are using iPhones and in their daily lives. And where do you see how it works well or not well in your firm?
Well, so first, I got to thank both you and Warren for inviting me on. I don't think I did that at the beginning of the show.
No problem.
It really is a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here. And to answer your question, Dave, so there are a lot of great things about the iPhone and iOS and the iPad that, when I started my practice 15 years ago, it was really hard for my wife to get me out of the office because what am I missing? Fear of missing out. And, we had that Motorola Q come out that was supposed to be sort of that answer to that. And Lord knows that was not. The iPhone is great for communications. It's great for communication with your staff, with your clients, especially with the ability to use third-party apps like Vonage and other VoIP this way. Because, to be blunt, you don't want certain people to have access to your personal phone number where they're going to call you, or they may call you, versus an app that you can turn off at any time. It's great to check emails. It's great to return emails. It is great to keep an eye on your work calendar, whether you're using the Apple Calendars program, or if you're using what I use is something called Daylight. Daylight is a client management relations program that is not, although specifically made for attorneys, has great utilization for attorneys. But the best part about Daylight and Billings Pros, they're made by a company called Market Circle, and they are a Mac-based software. So, there's a lot of programs out there like Clio and Practice Panther, and I could list them. They weren't originally Mac-based. Then they went to the web. So you can use, whether you use it on a Windows machine or a Mac machine. That didn't matter anymore. But the fact is that because of all the Mac integrations that work so well with this, for instance, my Daylight that I have on my iPhone and my iPad also syncs up with my Daylight on my Mac. And through my Daylight on my Mac, I can easily tag mail. So certain emails that I use. So when I'm using iMail and I get an email from a client or an email from a court, or I can tag it to the appropriate client matter and anything else that I need to, and that email will then shift over to Daylight automatically, and then Daylight will sync amongst my devices. So if I need to look up an old email, or if I need to look up a particular document attached to that email, it's very easy to do, especially when you're on the road. iOS is great when you're going to do a singular thing. If you're going to be drafting a particular document, or if you're researching a particular issue, that I think it's pretty good for, because it isolates you from the rest of the world, especially when you used to take your iPad to Starbucks and you would work on, hey, I've got this brief I got to do. I can't be bothered by anything else. And you just go there and you kind of turn everything else off, and you're good to go. What this isn't good for is it's not a laptop replacement. I can't go to, say, depositions downtown or depositions in another state or a hearing or a trial with just my iPad. Because if there's certain things I need to find in the client file, I have to have internet access, whether it's through Dropbox or iCloud. And it's got to be in constant sync, at least on it's always in constant sync on your laptop. Long are the days of Sugar Sync with some of their errors. Yeah, it was running great until one day it suddenly just stopped and started kind of cannibalizing some of my files. I had to go back and recreate everything. Thankfully, I was, but thankfully those days are gone. The problem with iOS, though, is it's not easy to sync your entire work folder. And I don't mean your client folder. I mean, you have to have all your clients on there, because what if it's that one other client that contacts you while you're on the road that needs to talk about X and it's an emergency, but you don't have access to those files because you don't have internet access. Mm-hmm. Sort of on the flip side, though, when you do have internet access, one thing that I think both the iPad and the iPhone is great at is I use a program called Parallels Access. Sure. And Parallels Access allows me to remotely log into my main computer here in my office, and then I can remotely work it with very great ease. But again, you have to have internet access. So I would never travel out of town, even on vacation, with just my iPad. I would always have at least my laptop. Heavens forbid a work issue comes up. Okay. But, on the flip side, the iPad is great media consumption, whether it's the various blogs that I follow for both work and for pleasure, whether I'm, want to read a book, watch a movie, listen to a podcast. The iOS platform is fantastic. It's not the laptop killer yet. And until they can figure out file management and better syncing, it won't be. So that, going back to the introduction, is why I won't get that levitating iPad keyboard, because it's just not worth it yet, because it's not replacing the computer.
Gotcha. Well, I'll definitely say that Apple's come a long way with file management on iPad and iPhone. So it was atrociously bad and hard to really manage what you had to manage. But I think they've done a much better job. Now, if you're using something like Microsoft Office, doing a lot of syncing, if you may even sync it over, like, let's say, OneDrive, in the business world, I work in the business world. I work, for an insurance company, and I do IT support for them. So I'm in that daily working with that on the Windows side of things, and as well as Mac. But something like Microsoft Office, who a lot of people live in and do a lot of documents, spreadsheets. I think it does a very good job of doing, just syncing through OneDrive. Now it could also sync, in the Files app on iCloud as well. And I think they've gotten a lot better. We just talked last week. We just talked about the Apple bundle. Now they're bundling all the apps together. So now you have your iCloud storage is going to be increased even further. You can go up to 4 terabytes now of being able to back things up now. I think Apple still has a long way to go. I agree with you with the fact that iCloud in itself needs to be a little more robust when it comes to doing storage, just like Google Drive and Dropbox and Box and all the rest of them. It's getting there. It's getting there.
And Dropbox and OneBox have been sort of a mainstay for attorneys. And actually, I wanted to back up just one thing on a comment about iCloud not quite being there yet. So it was an article last week in Engadget that talked about how there was an iCloud outage that took down a whole bunch of backups and photos for people off their iOS devices, which spooks me. And even though we have for our iOS devices, basically great backup of those systems into iCloud. As an attorney, you have to have a variety of other backups going at the same time too. Because
100%.
One thing goes out like that, you're screwed.
all those services I mentioned, I have redundant backups
Right.
on all of them.
Same here.
Whether it be small or big, you got to have you can't put all your eggs in one basket. It's probably good analogy. Or you gotta make sure you're backing up everything. So I mean, Microsoft is no saint either. I mean, they have problems all the time too. I'm dealing with Microsoft Teams always having being a good platform. Sometimes it doesn't work right. It gets slow or you can't connect. Same thing with OneDrive. OneDrive is great for what it does, but it isn't perfect either. So, but no, it's interesting to hear because every business is different. And like I said, I'm working in insurance. You're working in the legal field, so it's always interesting to see where things go when it comes to using the iOS devices. And more and more employees these days are utilizing with their iPhones. I mean, just being able to access it. Even CEOs and others that don't want to travel with them. I mean, they may not have to have as much of a critical because they have people under them that are doing all the heavy lifting, where they could just travel with just an iPad and be perfectly happy and be able to access whatever they need to access. It's come a long way. I mean, I did a presentation. I'm not sure if you're familiar with a conference that actually is local to Chicago called MacStock. I had actually spoken there. It was probably the second year I did a presentation. Could your iPad be your full-time computer? And back when I did that first presentation, it was still a long ways off. But I thought it had a good trying chance that it could. I mean, you've got a 12.9 inch iPad Pro, which is a great device. It's got a beautiful screen. It's huge.
Love it.
I mean, I've got the 11 Pro, the 11 inch Pro as well as Warren does. So I think it's got a lot of potential. But I kind of agree with you on some of the things, especially within business, that it's definitely a difference. Warren, did you have any thoughts about that with as far as storage, iPads working in business? And you've worked with a lot of this stuff before.
Sure. I mean, I agree with Michael a lot. I try to use so for IT support, especially being a contractor IT support, I tried using an iPad as a main computer, and the big thing you needed to do was control other people's computers, to help them. And so I tried the iPad and the team viewer, and with the trackpad it was a little bit easier. But at the end of the day, I just ended up going back to a computer. It was just a MacBook was just easier.
Agreed.
So I didn't. My experiment failed with that. But I work in healthcare. I work for retirement communities, and I can tell you that iPads are everywhere. There, all the nurses have them. Now that we check in people with COVID, we wrote a program for that on the iPads. So for people like who are constantly moving, I guess that's where the iPads come in handy for a business device. People that are like nurses, people in transportation, people in pretty much like in any service that you need to do. Maintenance are big on the iPods and iPads too, because you need to move around and have the data with you. So that also has its use. For people who are sitting at a desk stationary, you're always going to be better with a laptop. Yeah,
no, I agree. I think it's been pretty tough for me to walk away from a Mac or a PC for that matter. I have to know both since it's my profession. So, I agree. I think it's going to be a long while yet before we all could be on tablets for that matter, where it's just specifically a tablet. I mean, there's plenty of folks who have Windows tablets that are using the tablet format, but, it still has the robustness more advanced to what Windows can do versus what iOS can do or iPadOS. So,
a Surface with a keyboard is a laptop. I mean, people like to call them tablets, but it's not. What? And we talked about this before. What makes the difference between a laptop and a tablet, right? So if I had an iPad that looked like a MacBook, is it a computer? If I have a MacBook that detaches like an iPad, is it a tablet? is it the operating system? Is it the fact that it has a permanently attached keyboard to it? Is it, there's no real definition on that. And we had that discussion before.
Yeah, for sure. So, no, Michael, thank you. We appreciate you giving that insight in relations to how it works in your industry. And then the last topic I wanted to bring up with you today is we got about a few minutes left of the show here. Is your digital legacy? I really was really impressed of your presentation you gave to our Apple user group a couple weeks ago, and it was great because it's such an important topic. Now, you could spend a long time on it, 30, 40 minutes on just that topic alone.
Right.
But really what I wanted to find out from you is just on the angle of an iPhone or an iPad or having your digital devices. When someone does pass, or you want to be prepared for that,
Right.
what should people do with their iPhones and iPads to make sure that unexpected thing happens and then they can't access it?
Well, I mean, to be frank, my wife she knows my password to both my devices, but not everyone has, not everyone has a spouse or someone that they trust to have the password to whatever device. That being said, though, one of the things that we talked about protecting your digital legacy is that you have to have some form of a master password that either has access to all of your passwords in some sort of password manager, or at least the password to your particular device or devices sealed and ready to go, so that upon my passing, whether it's the executor of your estate or your spouse or your business partner, that they know how to get to it. That doesn't mean you actually have to share it with them saying, hey, my password is, password 101. And by the way, don't use that as a password. That would not be a good one. But you have to leave something behind for someone with instructions, with directions of what to do. Same thing in a will. In a will, you have to leave instructions of what I want left to whom. And you can have a digital legacy executor, someone specifically just for that, whether it's the executor of your will or a separate individual, depending on your state as well. That is in charge of all that. And you can't just leave your house behind to someone without leaving the keys, because trying to break into it, it's going to cost money, it's going to cost damage, what you might lose, etc. But one thing I wanted to flip back to is not only you have to have access to your digital legacy, leave it for someone else, you need to make sure you have backups of that. And, we all, if we're on an iOS device, I can't picture anyone who doesn't use the cloud, the iCloud service to back up their stuff. To be blunt, I don't use anything else, although I probably could, maybe should, but since everything else is also synced up with my computer, I'm not that worried about it. And my computer is synced up to like 3 or 4 different backups. So everything that's on here, I'm not worried about losing if someone can't get access to my phone. Really, if the access to the phone, the iPad, that's more of being able to pass it down to whoever, so they can either use it themselves or sell it without having to worry about jailbreaking it or having someone break the code.
Right. Okay. No, and I think that's a good way to really to sum it up. And password managers, Warren, do you use one? I think I always use 1Password. I think it's my favorite de facto password manager.
Same here.
Do you use 1Password, Warren? I forgot.
No, I tried it and I didn't like it. So we talked
LastPass?
before. No, I don't.
Or you don't use anything?
I use iCloud passwords. That's
you're using iCloud. Okay.
So I need to revisit. My password situation is a mess. So don't use me as an example.
No, yeah, 1Password is a great tool, and you can get your database can be backed up very easily, which is nice. And then all you have to do is put that magic password somewhere, maybe in a safe deposit box or someplace where someone can get to it, then you can get to all those passwords and keep them secure and all in one place. So I think it's important to really protect yourself, and especially with your iOS devices. I mean, everybody has iPhones. You worry that you can't get to their phone, you can't get to their messages, you can't get to any of the stuff. I cry and I hear people, oh yeah, I can't reset this iPad because I don't know the password to the iCloud account, and then the unless you can prove that you've owned the device or have a receipt that shows you purchased it, it's basically a brick. I mean, you can't do anything with it. So it's just super important to stay on top of that. Any other closing comments on that before we go ahead and wrap things up here?
Again, you just need to make sure someone has the keys to your legacy. And, we see on the news how the DOJ is constantly haranguing Apple to help them jailbreak into people's iPhones because they're password protected. And if the DOJ is having problems, imagine what it is, not for you, but imagine what it's going to be like for your loved ones or your friends or your business partners who you leave behind. You're not doing this for you. You're doing this for them.
Absolutely. All right. Well, great. I can't thank you enough for being on the show this week. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here in a moment, and then we'll find out where people can find you here. So let's go ahead and do that now. That's a wrap for this week. Please send your comments, questions, and suggestions to our email address, feedback@intouchwithios.com. You can follow us on Twitter @intouchwithios. You can subscribe in your favorite podcatcher, including Apple Podcasts, even Spotify. You can, or better yet, just go to our website at intouchwithios.com, where all the links to all the ways to listen to us are there. I am Dave Ginsburg, and you can find me on Twitter @DaveG65. And Michael, thank you so much for being here this week. It was what a great show it was, and tell everybody how they can get a hold of you.
Well, first, thank you both very much for having me on. Everyone can find me at the TechSavvyLawyer.page. You can listen to me at the TechSavvyLawyer.page podcast. You can find me both on not only Apple Podcasts, but Libsyn. And if you want to reach me directly, please feel free to email me at MichaelDJ at the TechSavvyLawyer.page. Excellent.
We're definitely going to. I've already had your podcast in my podcatcher when I start listening, and we definitely want you guys to listen up because he does some great stuff here. So, and Warren, Back to the Future. It was a busy week this past week. Was there anything that was highlighted this week?
Same stuff. It's all good. Don't worry about us. I'd just like to thank Michael for being here too. So it was a pleasure meeting you and talking to you.
Likewise.
Yes.
Likewise.
Me as well. And thanks everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll talk to you again soon.